protect everyone too. That's your Svarog.
Not a step closer.
Hello world, let's talk about Clara. Clara brings a very interesting and unorthodox playstyle to Honkai Star Rail. Being a unique unit, she might be confusing to some players, especially considering how new the game is. Fortunately for you, I lost my 50-50 to her and decided to play her out of spite. In an unexpected turn of events, however, I realized how fun she is to play. In any case, let's start by explaining her skills. First, you have her basic attack. Nothing extraordinary, just deals physical damage to the target enemy. Her talent, however, is pretty much her main focus. Whenever enemies attack Clara, Svarog marks the enemy that attacked her and shoots a beam at whoever has the mark, with an absurd attack scaling. Also, it passively gives Clara 10% damage reduction. This mark gets overlooked often, but it's important because it persists after the counter. Her skill is an AoE physical attack that hits all enemies, and this is why the mark is so important. This skill deals double the damage to enemies with the mark. Next up, her ultimate, which is kind of confusing, so pay attention. Upon casting, Clara gets even more damage reduction, scaling with trace level, and greatly increases her aggro, or the probability of being targeted by enemies. Not only that, but her next two counters get enhanced too, making it so that 1. They also trigger when an ally is attacked by an enemy, effectively giving your whole party 2 counters. 2. Their damage multiplier is increased by 115%, which I'm pretty sure this means that they deal 215% of the damage instead of 100%. And 3. It deals half of the counter's total damage to enemies adjacent to the one who actually attacked your team. Her technique is also very useful, as it not only attacks the enemy, but it also increases aggro towards Clara for 2 turns. As for light cones, she has plenty of good ones. Her best in slot is of course something irreplaceable. If you're lucky enough to get it by warping, then by all means go ahead. If not, however, don't worry, you can buy it for 600 starlights in the store. You get these for getting 4-star and 5-star light cones, as well as getting duplicate characters after the first time you've pulled them. Now, why is this one so good? Well, for one, it increases the wearer's attack by a modest 24% and heals the wearer for 8% of their attack whenever they kill an enemy or they get hit. Yes, this light cone heals you for getting hit, and this effect also increases your damage another 24% until the end of your next turn, which is usually right before the enemy turns start, so you can effectively have this passive active so long as you get hit at least once per cycle. Another very good one is Nowhere to Run, which is kind of like a different version of something irreplaceable. It also increases the wearer's attack by 24% and heals them for 12% of their attack whenever they defeat an enemy. Not quite the same, sure, it's weaker against enemies that might be harder to defeat, but it heals more. You get this one from the battle pass at level 30, which does mean that you have to pay $10 for this one, but if you're willing to get the battle pass, or you already have it and are debating on which light cone to pick, consider this one. Another very good one is a secret vow. I believe you can only get this one from wishing. It increases damage by 20%, and if the enemy has more HP percent than the wearer, it's increased by another 20% to that enemy. What this means is if your health bar is lower than your enemy's health bar, your damage is going to be increased by 40%. The Moles Welcome You is also a very good light cone because of its passive, increasing its attack by 12% whenever you attack an enemy. I'd imagine that at higher superimposition levels, this increase becomes even more significant, and paired with Bronya, you'd be able to stack it multiple times in a single cycle. As for the 3-star light cones, Shattered Home is actually pretty similar to a secret vow, increasing damage by 40% at superimposition 5 when attacking enemies with more than 50% health, thus making it very good also for nuking enemies, but the stats on this one are much lower than a secret vow at the same level. And if the enemy's health drops to 49%, all you're left with is the crappy stats. So a secret vow might be preferred between the two if you have it. Collapse in Sky is also an option, and you're almost guaranteed to have it because of how easy it is to get. But this only increases your basic attack and skill damage, which aren't Clara's main source of damage. Sure, they're good, but it's her counter that makes her unique. There's not much to say about her traces, other than you should focus on her talent and ultimate. But as for right now, farming is pretty easy, so you should be able to farm until you can level them all. This one is interesting though. Kinship makes it so that when Clara is attacked, there's a 35% chance to cleanse her of a debuff. Just one, it seems, but if you get attacked more than twice, it's pretty much guaranteed that you'll be cleansed. Now for her relics, and there's a lot to say here. Her best set for now is Champion of Streetwide Boxing, which you can farm in the Cavern of Corrosion, Path of Jabbing Punch. Not only does this increase your physical damage by 10%, but it also increases your attack by 5% whenever you attack someone or get attacked. This effect can stack up to 5 times, and these stacks persist until the end of the battle for a total of 25% extra attack. You can pair this with Space Sealing Station for an extra 12% attack, and if you can get 120 speed or higher, this increases to an extra 12% attack, a total of 24% attack. And the main stats you're looking for are actually attack percentage followed by attack, as opposed to the crit rate and crit damage you might want in other, if not most, characters, simply because of how busted the scaling on her talent is. But if you manage to increase crits, then of course go for the classic 1:2 ratio. Just don't enslave yourself to farming for god rolls. Attack is more than enough, and no, you do not need defense or HP. Clara's built-in damage reduction, and her team compensates for it. More on that later. If you're lucky to have any Eidolons, or if you can get them, here's a rundown of them. Her first Eidolon makes it so that using her skill doesn't remove the mark on the enemy, so you can deal the extra damage with the skill multiple times. I would imagine that this goes very well with Bronya, for example. Her second one gives her an extra 30% attack after casting her ultimate, which is incredible given that you can cast your ultimate whenever. So if you wait until all your buffs and your rotation are applied, then cast her ultimate, you can only imagine the attack boost it provides. Her third Eidolon isn't really remarkable. It simply increases your skill and basic attack levels, which is good, just not comparatively. Her fourth Eidolon gives her an extra 30% damage reduction after getting hit, lasting until the start of her next turn. So all things considered, she could get upwards of 50% damage reduction in a single cycle. Her fifth is like a better version of the third, increasing the level of her ultimate and most importantly her talent, thus giving her even more damage reduction and of course damage. Her sixth Eidolon makes it so that there's a 50% chance to counter for other allies, much like the way she does in her ultimate, but permanently. It also increases the number of enhanced counters by 1 for a total of 3. And now for her teamers. March 7th is actually Clara's best friend, because her shield actually increases the aggro on whoever she applies it, and of course shields them off damage, scaling with her defense. You may also slot Tingyun in here. She's an amazing unit that you should absolutely build. Her skill not only increases attack, but it also makes the buffed ally deal an extra instance of lightning damage whenever they attack, and her ultimate increases damage and recovers enemy for an ally. If you don't have Tingyun yet, don't worry, she will be a raid up in Jing Yuan's banner, coming up right after Seele's banner, but only pull for her then if you don't mind getting Jing Yuan as well. Natasha is also a unit that you should build no matter what, because not only are you guaranteed to get her, she's the only other healer so far, apart from Bailu, which might be harder to get. If you do have Bailu though, feel free to place her here instead, but you might have to change Tingyun for another character. Pela and Asta are good replacements in this case, and of course Bronya. If you're willing to sacrifice the healer, however, you may take Asta to guarantee the relic set bonus attack, the downside being that you do miss out on the healing. Pela is also great, given her ability to remove buffs and reduce the enemy's defense, but by all means work with whatever you have. I'm sure you could even slot in the Fire Trailblazer in here, but that might be a bit redundant. Now, here's a neat trick. Place your tanks at the edges of your team. That way, if an enemy performs an attack that might affect units adjacent to the target, it only deals damage to the tanks instead of someone who might not be that tanky, like Tingyun. Also, try to make your DPS, in this case Clara, have the lowest speed in the party. That way you can buff them before they attack. Unless you have Bronya, in which case she should have the lowest speed to fully take advantage of the extra turn she provides. In the simulated universe, You want to go path of elation and take as many elation cards as you can, because Clara's counter is actually considered a follow-up attack. Also, if she is shielded by March 7, then March 7 also performs another follow-up attack. This is another reason why they go so well together. I'm pretty sure that covers everything, so if this video helped, I appreciate it if you return the favor by liking and subscribing. Remember to take it easy, the game's just coming out, and good luck in your pulls.